Good morning everybody, my name is Harry Muppet and this is going to be my first StarCraft 2 commentary. Just downloaded a Gold League video between two players. First is our top right Zerg named Sepraphim, and the bottom left is our Terran player named OMGAmerican. Now, I have done a tutorial video in the past, which was pretty well, but then I sort of slacked off after a while, so I thought I'd try and get back into making some YouTube videos and try and see if I was any good at commentating. Now, what you'll also notice is that I'm using one of the new UIs, so not the original one. Basically, it's pretty good. It's got a lot of real estate in the actual screen. There is some minor deficiencies. For example, I noticed when I was casting beforehand that, for example, if you select a Stalker, you can't tell if it's got Blink researched or not because this doesn't show the actions that units can take. But otherwise, I'd say it's not bad as far as what you can see, and especially I like this banner up the top. Very nice and flashy, a lot like the UI that Blizzard have made for Heart of the Swarm. So anyway, just getting into this game. Not really much that interesting happening at the moment. Pretty heavy macro, some drone harass going on the barracks, which is pretty standard. We grabbed this worker. Doesn't look like he took too much damage, maybe one hit, so he'll probably be alright. And there's not really much else for the drone to see, so he's probably just going to try and keep himself alive until the Terran starts building the important structures like factories, starports, multiple barracks, etc. And meanwhile we've got some overlords being sent out across the map. I believe this overlord is invisible to the Terran units as he's on the high ground, so he might be able to stay there for a very long time. And if he moves just a little bit, he'll be able to see when this base gets taken, but that shouldn't be for a very long time either, as this base is actually... I was actually looking at this replay before, and I would have thought that this base would be a gold, because if you look at the positioning, and it's open to attack from both of these going in there, and it's a very wide open area, so basically you could go in through there and through there at the same time and just do a massive attack. So this expansion is extremely wide open, so I would have thought it would have to be a gold to tempt people to take it, as opposed to this one and even this one, which is not quite as safe as this one but still a lot safer. So let's have a look here. The Zerg is doing an expansion and pumping out a small amount of Zerglings, so it's fairly standard play from him. He went spawning pool first. I assume that's just to do some harass or do some advanced scanning with the Zerglings. Now, an interesting thing over here is that the Terran has chucked down a very early command center, and he's chucking down a very early factory as well. Now, the interesting thing about this is that he's got a reactor being built on the barracks. Now, I don't believe this is how he can chuck out a massive amount of Marines very quickly. I believe the factory is going to swap over, and we'll probably be seeing some Hellion harass, which is actually a very good decision, since the Zerg went for a fast expand and basically is also, at this point of the game anyway, focusing on Zerglings. Now, if we have a look at what the Zerg player sees, I'm not 100% sure if he saw that. He does see it now, so he sees the factory with the reactors, and we'll see what he does for that. He could either go for roaches, or he could try and burrow in a little bit deeper into his base, and it does look like he's going to burrow in a bit deeper. 2 spine crawlers, 2 evo chambers, maybe something in the middle there, and he should be pretty safe from Hellions. Now if we go to the other player, he has seen the second expansion, which is probably why he went for the more harassing route, because he knows he's not going to be facing a large roach push off one base or anything like that. And he's finding out about the wall there, so those Hellions are pretty much going to be useless for the next 5 or so minutes. We have a look at the production tab. Looks like he's going to focus a bit more on Zerglings, so he's not jumping into roaches for the time being. He's going to see probably if he can do some damage with the Zerglings. He does know about the expansion of the Terran, so if he gets out a decent force of Zerglings, I don't think he's going to have too many problems pushing in here and stopping this expansion from working. Now if we have a look, he's got his fancy, I believe it's level 20, you get that Overlord. If you're a level 20 Zerg player, he's got that scouting in. He's not going to see much that he hasn't seen before, just a few barracks and a factory. He's still got this Overlord just chilling out on top of the dome. Looks like a biodome of some sort. Growing food, perhaps? I don't know. What else have we got? We do have Widow Mines. So he's turned around and he's put that factory to good use, producing Widow Mines as opposed to Hellions. And I'm not sure, it's probably going to be taking out quite a lot of Zerglings if they do run out and start to do the harass, but the Zerg is not doing that yet. He may be waiting for his speed, which he has now. So we'll see what happens when they run out. Not much going on. We do have a Baneling nest coming on. So that is going to be quite devastating against the Marines of the Terran player. And it does look like he is focusing quite heavily on Marines here. He's got his upgrades going on. Just the weapons so far. He has not started the armor yet. And he's just focusing on barracks for the time being. Zerg does have his third base out, so he's looking like he's in pretty good shape. He's got the claws coming out, so it looks like Zerglings will be taking a major part in this fight for the long term. I'd like to see him start to move out and start to make something happen, because the Terran is doing a very good job of getting his macro up, and he looks pretty good at the moment. So we'll see what else happens. Spire going down, so we're probably going to see the old Mutiling combination going on for this battle. Mutiling is pretty damn good. It's very mobile, and his creep spread is fairly impressive as well for the moment. So if he manages to get this out by about this area, by about the 15-20 minute mark of the game, then the Terran will be in a lot of trouble, because he'll be very hard pushed to get a third and a fourth expansion. There'll just be hit and run attacks by Zerglings and by Mutalisks all over the place. Now, I don't know if he scouted the Spire. It doesn't look like he has, but he is going to be pretty well off, because he has a fairly large Marine army, so he should be able to push the Mutalisks back without much problems, but the Zerglings and the Banelings, when they start coming out, will be able to clean up these Marines. I believe the usual counter for Mutiling for Terran is Marine Tank, and so we'll just see after he starts scouting the Mutalisks, after he starts scouting the Banelings, whether he shifts over to tanks. It does look like he's probably going to go into the Marine drop sort of tech route, and that's pretty good as well. You should be able to slow down the Zerg's macro quite a bit, and maybe you won't be able to bust out a massive amount of Mutalisks. Speaking of which, we have an attack here. It's pretty well prevented though from these missile turrets, and we have a absolutely fantastic move by the Terran there, moving in and healing up that missile turret. So I believe he lost 2 or 3 Mutalisks there, and he's not really going to get anything out of that. So you can see he's tech switched again, maybe going for Roach Warrens. This may be a potential counter to the tanks coming out, or maybe he's just not that satisfied with his Mutalisks anymore, and he's going to go out for a Roach as well. But he's still building a fair amount of Banelings, so he obviously still knows about the Marines, and he's still going to make sure that he can kill them, I guess. Widow Mine's finally getting taken out, and macro is slowing down a bit for the Zerg player. The 13-14 minute mark, you can almost expect him to have a lot more drones going on. If we look at the income, we see that he's about even with the Terran player. So the Terran player has very good macro at the moment. Excuse me. The Zerg usually should be a little bit further ahead in the harvester's count. Catching up a bit now, but he has to offset these mules, and these mules are being laid down very well at the moment. So you can see before the mineral income was up to 1800 for the Terran player. So we'll see how that goes. Maybe in the next few minutes he might even take a fourth, and if he takes a fourth, then that's not the production, that's the pause button. I always get those confused. He should be in a very good spot in terms of macro. We can see here though that the Terran player has already got an orbital command. He's dropping it down at the third, so his macro is going to go through the roof, and the Zerg is going to have a lot of trouble keeping up unless he gets a fourth base. Up the top here, these just look like they're scouting for expansions, maybe kill off a couple of creep tumors if he wants to use a scan on those. This force looks a bit more serious. What have we got over the Zerg? He's got a few banelings and he's got a few roaches, so I think if the banelings get off some good hits, then he should be okay for protecting that. He'll have to worry though, because here we go, there's two medivacs going for a drop, and they are going to hit this base, I believe. Got this small force being taken out pretty well, so that's them gone. And meanwhile, it's perfect timing by the Terran player. Just as those were being taken out, he's moved in here. Most of the drones survive. However, this hatchery is definitely going down. Yeah, looks like he gets out of there okay. No anti-air units at all. I believe there's still some mutalisks flying around the base somewhere. There they are. And yeah, that's going to get finished off. He took out a hatchery, but it's 300 minutes, sorry not minutes, minerals down the tube, but if you can see the amount of minerals that the Zerg player has, he's not going to be complaining at the moment. He just has to get that back working again, and then he should be fine. Meanwhile though, the Terran's third base is fully set up. Look at the income tab again, he's actually in the lead. So he's been pushing out drones quite well, and I think he's going to be doing very, very well for himself. Here's a major push, quite a few Marines. Now there's not as many banelings in this army as I'd like to see, so getting rid of those Marines is going to be quite a pain, and in fact the Hellbats in the front took most of the hits from those banelings, so those Marines are going to be able to go to work and do a lot of damage here. I don't think the roaches are going to be able to take them on at all. So let's just see how much damage he can do here. A hatchery is getting built back up again, so that should be fine if he manages to survive this. Yeah, doing quite a lot of damage there. Quite a lot of banelings morphing in though, and actually we have quite a lot of Colossus here. And it looks like we're going for another tech switch into Broodlords and Corruptors. So we'll see if the Terran player manages to spot this on the way in. However, he's going to pull out now, and he is going to be completely obliterated by that Baneling army. But if we have a look at his vision, he does see the Corruptors, he does see one spawning, so if he's paying attention, then he knows exactly what's coming up. And in fact, I think there was a Widow Mine who actually got a nice hit on a few of those Corruptors. So these guys just going in for the scout. They've seen the Great Aspire, they've seen the Broodlords morphing in, so I don't think there's going to be any surprises in wait for the Terrans. And actually, if you can see the production tab, there's two Vikings coming out already, so Vikings are very, very good versus Corruptors. I'd say they're a little bit better than Corruptors if there's enough in number. And the fact is, the Zerg player is in a lot of trouble at the moment. He's lost his expansion, his third base is up, but he's not really saturated it that much at the moment. He needs the gas at the moment. He's got a fair amount of minerals, but he needs the gas. And meanwhile, the Terran player has just gone absolutely nuts. He's on his 4th base now, he's fully saturated it. If we pop over the income tab, it's 24 to 72. I must not have caught it, but a lot of drones must have died in that previous exchange. So these guys basically have to get to a base and start destroying a massive amount of drones. Otherwise, he is just going to fall behind. If you look at the difference between the income, is just stupidly large at the moment. The difference in the harvesters is stupidly large. If we look at the units at the moment, oh, you'll have to excuse me. Where is the army size? Active forces is A, so it's 42 to 95 at the moment. So he's got quite a large army in comparison to the Zerg player. Now we'll see what damage these guys can do. Now unfortunately the Terran player has the Zelnaga watchtower, so he can perfectly see this Zerg army, and this Zerg army doesn't know anything that's going on. We've got a nice drop down here. Probably just got to try and clean up some tech structures. Not really many harvesters around here to go on, but of course his Great Aspire is over here, slowly dying because it doesn't have any creep. Coming in back over here, got the Broodlords and the Corruptors going to town. This is a bit dangerous because of all these production structures. He definitely needs those, but he does have a decent amount of Vikings now. I believe they're going to clean up the Corruptors without too much trouble. And then these Broodlords are not long for this world, and I'm not sure if the Zerg can do anything about this. And there we go, there's the end of the game, I guess. The Zerg player, yeah, I'm not sure I agree with the tech switch too much into Broodlords. Broodlords are fairly good, but they're not that good against Marines unless they have something else to keep the Marines occupied. In Banelings, he had Banelings, and Banelings are excellent against Marines, so I believe he should have just stayed with the Banelings. And I actually notice, I remember from when I watched the replay the previous time, this is my second viewing of it, that he had 3/3 upgrades for his ground attack forces for his Zerglings. So when I saw him going for Hive, I thought for sure he was going to go for Ultralisks, and I believe, excuse me, that would have been a fairly good choice. Ultralisks versus Marines are quite devastating, and the Terran player really wasn't going for Marauders or tanks, isn't really even set up to go for tanks, so I believe that would have done a lot of damage. Instead he went for Broodlords, and I don't think that's the right option. It's very, very easy for the Terran to start getting out Vikings. In actual fact, he had 2 more Stargates pumping out Vikings over here, so, and the fact that his macro was so high, just as soon as this attack went through here, I don't think he had very much of a chance anymore. It's just the inability to keep his expansions on the up and up, and also to harass. All it would have taken was a fairly large amount of Zerglings to run in here. These are relatively undefended from ground forces, so a large number of Zerglings in here, in 2 bases at once, this one and this one, would have done massive amounts of damage, but unfortunately he just didn't go for it. So that's the game. Thank you for listening, and hopefully I'll upload more in the future.